Hey, I'm Vlad with GlobMarble, and I'm going to show you how to make a floor stamp overlay over an existing wooden floor. Now, for the sake of demonstration, I'm using a piece of plywood, but imagine that this is your wooden floor. First thing we're going to do is we're going to staple this metal lath and make sure that there's no high points or peaks. Everything's completely flat and level with that piece of plywood or floor that we have. Now that that's done, I'm going to start mixing up our overlay, which is an extremely tough product made specifically for this purpose. I'm going to use 2 bags, but I'm going to mix them up separately to make it a little bit easier, and for each bag, I'm going to add 3.5 liters of water. Now into the bag, I'm going to add the ColorPack. I'm using the color silver, and one of these is good enough for 1 bag. And then slowly introduce this bag into the water while mixing it. So now it's time to use a gauge rake to spread this all around at the height that we need. And the height of the concrete that you want is always going to be the distance between the lowest point in the mold to the highest point in the mold, which is usually going to be these grout lines. Guys, so on second thought, I used a little bit too much water. I didn't use more than the manufacturer recommended, but I did have to wait a little bit to get to the next step. In the last video I did, I'm going to link it in one of the corners of the screen, I used only 3.31 liters of water per bag. This one I used 3.5. Anyways, the next step is smoothing the concrete over to make sure that everything is completely smooth. There's no lines in here and stuff like that, to make sure that none of that gets translated onto the stamp that we're going to be putting. I'm going to be using mold 3004, which is a bluestone pattern, and I'm going to spray the molds with our GSR release agent and the floor also. Before I get to that, how I know that I'm ready to stamp is that when I touch the concrete, it still leaves a mark in there, but nothing's left on my finger. And it's good to have enough molds to go the entire length of your floor and maybe 1 or 2 extras to go on top, because you're going to be traveling upwards and you're going to want something to walk on. You can't walk on that concrete. If you want to know how to stamp around corners and walls, I'm going to link a video to show you exactly how to do that. And sometimes you're going to have something like this, where there's a thin line of concrete in between the seams, and the best thing to do to fix that with is with one of these touch-up wheels. So now it's time to use some SCR, which is a water-based acid cleaner. It's going to wash off all of that release agent that we put on there, and it's going to open up the pores inside of the concrete so that it's going to take any sealer, any stain that we put on there a lot better. We're going to mix it at 4 parts water, 1 part SCR for the overlays. And then before actually starting to do it, we're going to wash off the slab with some water. Make sure that it's always wet. You don't want this stuff to dry into the concrete, so just keep going over it and don't let it dry. And I'm only doing a small area so I can get away with using a sponge, but it's better for like large areas to use a floor brush. Now once that dries up a little bit, I'm going to add some water-based eco stain into this, and I'm using the water-based version because you can always come back and touch something up if you don't like the way that it looks. I'm using the color Magnet, and I'm using it inside of a pump sprayer. So how we do it is, we start spraying and go in circular motions like this. And like I said, the thing about the water-based stains is that you can shift them and move them around once you're done, so even if you don't like the way something looks, you can always fix it. So like these polka dots over here, I'm not really liking them. All I have to do is grab a little bit of water, dampen the sponge to the point where it's not dripping anymore. And this wet look, what you're seeing right now, is what you're going to be seeing while the sealer's on top of it, because that's essentially what the sealer does to concrete. So now completely dried, all the moisture evaporated out of the concrete, and we're going to seal it. The best way is putting 2 thin coats, but I'm going to be mounting this on top of a wall, so I don't need to do that. Nobody's going to be walking on it. I'm only going to put 1 coating. I'm going to get rid of these loose fibers from the roller with blue painter's tape by rolling it on top of it. I'm going to be using GU20 or high performance urethane sealer. For outside projects, it's best to do with a acrylic sealer. Right after it's at the point where you can walk on this, you're gonna add your second coating and you're basically done. So I like the way that this turned out. It could make your home look a lot more modern, but I wanna know what colors you would have used instead. Comment down below and give us a like. Thanks for watching.